Welcome to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, where we discuss matters that are political, local, national, continental, global, in a fair and balanced manner. I'm Reuben Abati. My name is Reuben Abati, your host for This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. And with me today, I have Professor Bola Akinterinwa, former Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, and currently the President and Director General of Bola Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies here in Lagos. And then we also have, of course, our regular Yemi Adamolekun. Yemi Adamolekun is Executive Director of the Enough is Enough Group in Lagos. And then, of course, Deputy Editor at This Day on Sunday and noted political journalist Olaleye. You're welcome.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah. Good evening. Well, as is customary on this program, I usually start with Wale. He being a political editor helps us to track the events in the week. So, Wale, what have been the main highlights in the week that just ended?
I would say it was just another typical week. And though we had a cocktail of events that dotted the week in view, IPOB was formally prescribed and designated a terrorist group by an Abuja High Court last week, following an initial presidential declaration by President Buhari, to that effect. And then ever since the invasion of Kanu's home, he's not been found yet with his parents, and that has remained in the news too. And then, of course, the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Mohammed, last week alleged that IPOB was being funded by those who had looted the treasury, and that the headquarters was domiciled in France, much as he couldn't give us further facts on that. And that, of course, has remained a controversial news content. Then the president was at Onga, and then he gave his speech, which I would think we'll also look at in context here. The police, I find this quite interesting. The police last week said newly recruited officers would be posted to their states of origin. I think we might have begun to embrace the multi-level policing that we've been craving over the years. I think that way we may be getting somewhere in terms of security. So we have a lot of them. The CJN last week proposed special courts for corruption cases. I think another positive step into containing the scourge of grafts, if you would ask me. On the international scene, controversial President Trump had another interesting week with the NFL over alleged disrespect to the American flag. And of course, the brick baths with North Korea still continue to in the week. China actually further tightened news on North Korea through some of the economic sanctions approved by the UN. There was a major earthquake, 7.1 in Mexico, and that was a sad one because as of this morning, the death toll was about 307 people. I also find this interesting. Kenya's Supreme Court blamed the nation's electoral commission for the annulment. I mean, it was just saying the obvious. It was like saying INEC rigged, So by and large, that defined the week in question, and it wasn't a bad week, if you ask me.
Yeah, but if you look at some of these issues, some of them have been very controversial, particularly the Minister of Information saying that IPOB is being sponsored by Treasury litters, and there are certain accounts in France. The French government, I think, denied it. And there was also a kind of denial also from the Turkish government to disassociate themselves with any form of direct sponsorship of the Indigenous Peoples Organization of Biafra. But what the minister said, I got on the wrong side of so many people who said that, the minister probably didn't have his facts. But I think he has since come forward again to say that they have the facts and that they are certain that, some money is being kept in France and that there are persons overseas who have been funding the Indigenous Peoples Organization of Biafra. But where does that leave us? Beyond the allegations, beyond the
usual allegations. And I think, there's a lot of backlash against the government in terms of what is said and what is not supported. So treasury looters is one thing. As an organization and other partner organizations, we've consistently said, all this money that you've recovered, what are the terms? Who gave up money? What were the terms of agreement? Is it in exchange for prosecution, limited time? Sorry?
Plea bargain.
Plea bargain, whatever it is. Under what grounds did you get this money? Who gave the money? And the same thing, I think, is sort of the same trend with IPOB. You're saying treasury looters that have no name. Yet you're castigating an organization being funded by treasury looters. You say you have your facts. So in all of that, what then is the point? We don't know the treasury looters. We can't see the connection. You have not used it to prosecute Nnamdi Kanu. So what then is the value of the information he's given?
If you'd ask me, I would think really that was an unconscious attempt to politicize a very serious issue. And Alhaji Lai Mohammed really has to be more cautious in some of his utterances. That was not needed at that point in time. You were making allegations against a sovereign country. You were not even sure. France had to come out to deny that. And then we've had to deal with this kind of thing back and forth about government, indulging in excessive propaganda, if you'd ask me.
To what purpose?
Yes, to what purpose? I don't think it was needed at that point in time.
His family is in the UK, we know that. His wife and child live in the UK. So there is a possibility that they are getting foreign funding.
Yeah.
No, but you see the Turkish connection, because there was also an attempt to establish a Turkish connection, not by the Nigerian government, but by perhaps some other parties who were speculating. And the embassy of Turkey in Nigeria had to come out to say that, look, yes, there may be a Turkish gentleman who has been identifying with Nnamdi Kanu, but he doesn't speak for the government of Turkey, and he does not represent the foreign affairs position of the
which is
government.
Which is why I was
Turkey.
making the point about the UK. Because his family, he lived in the UK before he came back. His wife is still there. So tying money, tying money to the UK or France is even very possible.
More like it.
Exactly, but the point is...
This whole thing about IPOB being a terrorist organization, Nigerians also seem to be divided on that. Although if the government position, a court has already prescribed it, the president, we're told, has also signed the relevant documents. And the Terrorism Act, says very clearly that, look, these are the circumstances under which you can be classified either a terrorist or a terrorist group. And, Section 2 to 15 of that particular act is so broad that anybody can. But what do you think, Prof?
I think that at the end of the day, when we talk about facts, the question to ask is which facts? There are always many versions of the truth at any given time. The truth is that Lai Mohammed is laying claim to one version of the truth. Those who disagree with him are also holding on to another version of the truth.
In between,
in between, yes. Now, in between, we need to engage in deductive analysis and then know who is nearer the real truth.
But you're assuming he's saying the truth, sir?
No, you see, at the end of the day, we are not in a position to really determine who is telling lies. Because normally, even the countries that would deny, whether it is France or Turkey, the truth is that no country will openly admit that it is condoning or it is engaged in what is internationally prohibited.
But the fact that I have money in France doesn't mean that France is, as a country, is supporting whoever is
I do agree with you. You see, the issue is that who is really a terrorist?
That's where to start.
The word terrorism has a political connotation. It is not even...
one man's terrorist is another man's hero or freedom fighter.
If you look at the genesis of the word, terrorism, it was first coined in 1789 during the French Revolution, terror. And the definition of terrorism, internationally speaking, must include the factor of wickedness, cruelty, And then the objective must also be political. You will discover that at the level of Africa, there was the time the Americans described the liberation movement as terrorists. And African leaders responded, clearly stating that no, these are liberation movements, they cannot be rightly considered as terrorists. So it's essentially political. And at the end of the day, like Reuben rightly pointed out, the ambiguity in the conception, in the definition of terrorism, in the Terrorism Act itself, raises more questions than answers. So at the end of the day, the Americans made it clear that the IPOB is not a terrorist organization for now for them. They are looking at IPOB specifically from the angle of being the proponents of self-determination. Now, but Nigeria says it is...
Prof, where do you stand? Do you consider IPOB a terrorist organization?
For me, IPOB is actually an agent of self-determination as at today, because that's what they have been asking for. And if the government is now saying they are not going through the normal process, due process, and as a result is now describing it as a terrorist organization, it is debatable. There are as of today, legally speaking, the proscription itself is generating heated debate. Some lawyers, learned people, say at the end of the day, IPOB is not a juristic person. And as a result, you cannot prescribe a non-juristic law. Precisely. But the other school of thought has come up with the argument that there was a precedent that Boko Haram, at the end of the day, is more terroristic in its manner, in its execution of activities, and is not registered, yet it was prescribed.
Well, the legal argument put up by Okoye Bono Obla is that IPOB may have been registered in the United States, but that it is not registered in Nigeria. And if it is not registered in Nigeria, then it cannot conduct its business in Nigeria. Okay. And that given the nature and manner of its activities so far, if you situate all of that within the context of that Terrorism Act, you will find that, you know, it probably has fallen short of the law within that act and within the criminal code. And then, of course, everybody will rely naturally on the existing judgment by the Federal High Court.
Prof, so how do you situate a group that goes abroad to ask for, solicit for arms, a group that is setting up its own arms within a sovereign state, a group that is claiming, I mean, whose leader is claiming it will go to Abuja and bring back the head of the president, asking foreign countries to come to their head? In what context would you situate such a group?
You see, it's a very difficult question to answer. The question has to be addressed within a specific context. The issue is this. It was von Clausewitz who argued that... precisely.
If you want on war.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. If you want peace, prepare for war. What does that mean? How do you prepare for war with the ultimate, precise in terms of peace? You see, the issue is that the agitation of IPOB is political. One, IPOB is not even the agent provocateur that we should be dealing with. The truth now is that the government has come out openly to say IPOB is being sponsored, all right, by some agents internationally. Meaning now that if we are talking about the true terrorists, all right, you should factor in the extra Nigerian agents, all right, sponsoring. So IPOB is simply the trumpet. The trumpeters are elsewhere.
Could this be part of the reason why the National Assembly, for example, is considering a bill to prohibit, restrict, modify the activities of non-governmental organizations in Nigeria? Because there is an NGO bill proposed by, you know, a certain... And the whole idea is to say, look, if you're an NGO, you must declare your source of income, your funding. You must render account to government.
But it's already, those are already, my thing is, okay, so this is personal to me, so because we have an organization that falls within a parameter. And again, National Assembly continues to chase things that make no sense. Whereas they should be focused about checking the executive, which is their job, or explaining to Nigerians why they earn so much money aside. You want to say that there are certain organizations declare funding. We do annual reports. Your funders require reports on the grants that they've given you. If you think that there are certain NGOs that fall afoul of the law, there are enough laws to go after them. Why do you want yet another commission with another DG? Then you say you're looking for regional balance for membership. Then you will find a headquarters. And we're trying to say we need to reduce the size of government.
This has been done in some other countries.
Well, and so what?
Government officials cite the example of...
Yeah, but that doesn't make it right. Kenya is dealing with it now because they proscribed their Human Rights Commission in the aftermath of the election. The fact that other countries have done it doesn't mean we should. Other countries have, if you want to do that, other countries have set up a sovereign wealth fund that has a lot more money than we have. Why haven't we not done that? Why haven't we done that?
No, you see, what you should address is to categorize the non-governmental organizations into
different.
Yes, depending on the objective.
Yeah.
For instance, those that are engaged in healthcare, the organizations dealing with the welfare of the people as distinct from movements.
Prof, maybe we will take this at greater length when we come back, or some other day. We need to take a break. You are watching the Sunday Talk Show here on the Arise channel with me, Reuben Abati, in Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos. We're heading for a short break now. Do stay with us.